Welcome to the Mindfulness of Singing, and I'm Denise, your sassy, spunky scientist.
And I'm Tony, your bubbly, big-hearted flower child.
Our podcast features practical tips and tools for a journey of transformation using the healing power of your voice.
Each podcast, we will delve into the mind, body, and spirit connection by interviewing inspirational guests, sharing personal stories, and discussing the most recent scientific research.
Tune in and join our community of mindful singers. Hi, Tony. How are you today?
I'm great, Denise. I've had a beautiful weekend. And if we have time, maybe I'll share that with you later. But right now, I want to tell you about our guest today. His name is Tom Durant. And cool story how I met him, but I'm going to wait and share that with him when he comes on. So for our guest, I'll just tell you that he is an award-winning producer. And let me see in my notes because I don't know him personally. This is my first time to meet him. I met his wife. He is an award-winning editor and television producer. And when he's not on a show, he's creating and producing his own documentaries and television pictures. And when I was researching, I realized that there's some more documentaries that I would like to see. But today, we're going to be talking about his documentary called Sound Heals, the movie. And he's based in Bellingham, Washington. And I'm looking forward to chatting with him.
Okay. Wow. Wow. That's amazing. I know that you spent some time in a sound healing room.
Interdimensional sound chamber is also included in this documentary, and our upcoming guest is the man who owns it and the woman who assisted me in my journey through the interdimensional sound chamber. And so we'll be talking about that too. And it's also in the Sound Heals documentary, but the documentary covers not just the interdimensional sound chamber, but music theory. So many things we'll delve into with him about the movie. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'm excited.
Me too.
I knew you had a special guest lined up for us today, but I didn't realize exactly what we were doing. So
it's always a mystery and a surprise with Tony. You never know. You never know.
I thought it was the interdimensional sound chamber people, but okay.
Well, he's connected with them. Then the document with them, but they are next week. So.
Oh, so kind of a part deux.
Yes, indeed.
So if our listeners like today, they will like the next one as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is kind of a good precursor, a good introductory into next week. So
cool. All right. Wow, I'm excited for them to come on. So you went on a yoga weekend.
Yes, I did. And this morning I got to attend a cacao ritual. And it was beautiful and delicious. And I asked for the recipe, and one of our friends said she never uses a recipe, but you can see the main ingredients over there. And so I went over and wrote down cayenne makes the cacao more flavorful and brings out the rich nutrients of it. And we also had rose petals on the top of it. And they began the ceremony with music and ritual and bonding. It was beautiful. I enjoyed it very much. And it was something I had just the day before. And as you know, Denise, this happens so frequently in my life. I go, I'd like to. And then the next thing you know, boom. And I was just talking about cacao ceremonies, and there it was on the program. So super cool.
Well, okay. So how could I have now I like Mexican hot chocolate, and I also like any of the dark chocolate bars that have a little, chili pepper or cayenne in it. So I can see how that would happen. But so if I want to have like a cacao ritual for myself, so what are the ingredients?
Turmeric and honey, and I think maybe pepper. Pepper, I know, activates things in general.
Like a black pepper or a chili pepper?
I know my notes. Maybe we'll have to include that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I can tell you this: it was yummy. And I was definitely.
Listen, you love anything chocolate. You and I both do, but especially you, because if there's chocolate in the house, you better hide it. If Tony's around.
I get it naturally from my mother.
Sure. We can blame everything on our parents. Go right ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. Works well.
I have to hide chocolate from my husband too.
Well, should we see if he's coming? What time? Oh, no, we're just a few minutes early. So, okay. Would you have anything you'd like to share, Denise?
Now, I haven't been to any yoga things. No. No. My life's been pretty, just finished opera production. We had our performances this week. So today's the first day that I haven't been, in opera rehearsal or have something that night to go to or tonight to go to. Although the cast is coming over for chili
Nice,
and
nice.
and gluten-free pumpkin bars and with chocolate chips in them. There's that chocolate again. Dark chocolate. So it was a fun show. It was funny. It's cute.
Very good. Well, congratulations. Enjoy your party this evening.
Yeah. So things have been a little crazy, but they will loosen up a little bit coming up. I am going to begin tap dance lessons next week.
Very cool. Look at
I
you.
know. I've
Play on.
always wanted to learn how to tap dance, so I'm going to do it. And
Well,
here's our guest. Our guest is coming.
yes. Connecting drum roll. Hi, Tommy. You're
Hello.
you're sideways. Is that intentional?
No, but it does seem appropriate for my current state of mind. Hold on.
There we go.
Here, let me move this around. Sorry about that, everybody.
No worries.
It's all right. My neck might hurt after a while, but otherwise.
I'm glad you flipped it around.
Okay, yeah, we'll go for the vertical here. Just let me. All right. Eventually, I'll get this. All right. Sorry about that.
No
Oh,
worries.
it's fine.
Welcome, welcome. We just introducing you, but I want to share with you and with all of our guests the connection. This summer I did a lot of traveling and I was in Bellingham where Tom is located and on my way to see, yes, I see that there, good promotion. For those that are only listening, he just showed his shirt, his Bellingham shirt. Beautiful city. I really fell in love. I spent more time in Bellingham than I intended to, but I had some nice experiences because I had to get my COVID test in order to get over to Canada. So I was driving. Go ahead, Denise. Did you have
I was just going to say for our listeners, Bellingham, Colorado, Washington.
Bellingham,
Okay.
Washington.
Okay.
And that was the place to get my $200 COVID test so that I could get across to Canada. And I had to wait and go to the airport and all that. Well, while I was killing time, this is what literally happened. I'm downtown Bellingham, Washington, driving down, and it's the screech, the brakes, turn around, pull over on the side of the road because I saw a sign that said, and he can help me get this right, home of the interdimensional sound chamber, sound awakening, awakening to who we truly are using frequency. Now, if Tony sees a sign like that, that means and put on the brakes and pulled over and parked. And I walked in and I met Tom's wife, Jennifer Durant. And I said, I got to know what this is all about. And she showed me the amazing room with the interdimensional sound chamber. And I said, I'm only passing through. I'm only here today. Is there any way you can get me in? And she worked her magic. And I had a session with Linda and it was awesome. And of course, I chatted with your lovely wife and she told me about your documentary. And so that catches us up to having you this week. And the next week, Linda, who I had my session with, will be on, and her and Diane's husband, who is the owner of the Interdimensional Sound Chamber. So I enjoyed your documentary. When I got home, I watched it and I contacted Jennifer, your wife, and said, we would love to have you on our podcast. And here you are. So that catches you up, Denise, the connection. And
Got it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no. Okay, so that piques a lot of my interest as a voice scientist and someone who works in frequency and tries to get certain frequencies within the voice so that it carries more or has more brightness or less brightness and those kinds of things. So I'm super curious about this. Unpack this for me, please.
You want to dive in?
I'm like, is it my turn to speak, or should I let you explain? Because I mean, in terms of the documentary, we didn't really focus a lot on the voice and, using the harmonics of the voice for healing, with the exception of the self-soothing and the artistry that comes with like using it as an emotional catharsis when you're writing music or singing music or listening to your favorite music and doing your things like that. We focused a little bit more on what some people would consider esoteric sound healing treatments, like bowls, gongs, tuning forks, things of that nature, as more of a meditative practice. But the interdimensional sound chamber, when we moved to Bellingham, it was a very similar moment that you had, where we were just walking downtown. We had just bought a house. We're like, what are we doing here? How did we end up in this place? And bam, there's this great looking stone and crystal metaphysical shop. I'm like, well, this is perfect. Let's go in here. Next thing we know, my wife has a job there, and we got to know Diana, the owner, and Linda, and all the wonderful people that have worked there and do practices there, and learned about the chamber. And it just so happened 8 years prior, I had started this documentary on sound healing and just hadn't been able to finish it due to my normal job as a TV producer taking over my life. And so it just was serendipitous and kismet, whatever you want to call it. And we ended up doing the segment with the interdimensional sound chamber as well, and added that to the whole mix. And that sort of brought the whole film to a close. So that's how we got entangled with that whole deal. But it was the same thing. It was tire screech. Let's find a parking spot. Let's get in there and do our thing. But really, like, the one thing that we did focus on, especially with Jamie Ford, or Jamie Bechtold, who is the gong practitioner we worked with, she speaks a lot on how people associate frequencies to different chakras or to different body systems and things of that nature. But realistically, in her practice, what she finds, and this is similar to what I found through doing this documentary, is that it's really more about the meditative state that comes with some of these practices and different modalities, and how it allows us to, in that meditative state, work on healing ourselves in a more spiritual or mental way, which then affects directly the physical body. And I think that was an underlying thing that it went through the whole film. And it was sort of that realization in the end of like, oh yeah, this is what it's all about. It's about us being stressed out and out of touch and inundated with stimuli that is not beneficial to us, that is more detrimental to us, and how that mental landscape that this world around us creates can really cause physical illness in the body, whether it's inflammation and whether it's just inability to sleep because of anxiety. I mean, there's a whole list of things that we could go through, but it really just came down to giving us the permission and the ability to sort of clean our consciousness up. And that did a lot of work for people, helping them heal from whatever ailments that they had, including some people who did have cancer diagnoses that simply changing their mindset seemed to really do wonders for them. And it makes you think about how much like placebo has an actual effect on our bodies, and how much healing power comes with our bodies. So that was one of the more amazing things. But I'm sorry, I totally went off track from the voice thing. And I'm sorry if you're a person that specifies or specializes in vocal stuff, but absolutely, it is important. And I know a lot of people that do work with the voice. It didn't happen to be one of the mainstays in the documentary. So I'm so sorry to disappoint you.
No. I don't. Let me speak for Denise. I don't think she's disappointed. I think she was just curious in that. And I want to give an overall.
Not disappointed at all. I mean, no, I mean that's kind of some of the stuff that we talk about is, not just being mindful about singing, or how singing can be a practice of mindfulness, because I mean you have to get in your body and you have to be present, or it's not going to go very well. But not, and not just that, but in everything that you do, mind, body, spirit is huge. Mindset is huge. Tony and I are all about mindset, and no, you're spot on. You are not taking away from anything that has to do with voice. In fact, what you're saying is true and enhances someone who is a practicing singer. I mean, if they don't know that mindset is super important, they're going to figure it out soon.
Yeah. And the other thing too is just understanding how a simple song, I mean, song is one of the most ancient forms of communication with humans anyway. So there's obviously something very deep rooted in us that appreciates and needs that just as much as we need physical touch and contact and social structure. But I think knowing that what you do as a musician or as a person who vocalizes has the power to change somebody's mood, their feelings, their mental state. That's a powerful tool. Yeah, the chemical what happens to the chemicals in your brain. I mean, it's to listen to somebody and get goosebumps. That's a physical reaction to something that, you know, most people would say, oh, it's just a song. It's like, no, it's not just a song. If it's doing that to you, then it's having an really profound impact on you. And I think we need to study it more. And that's really, like Dr. Goggin, who was in our documentary, spoke to that as well. Like, we just need to study this more. And unfortunately, the money's not there like it is with the pharmaceuticals. So it's harder to get these studies, but people are doing the work, and there's enough anecdotal evidence that really shows that there is a huge impact happening. People that are undergoing these various modalities, whether you think they're esoteric or whether it's just putting on the right song at the right time. But I know I've also seen some huge impact with people that were failing in speech pathology, but then they went into music therapy and absolutely were able to start talking to where I have a hard time with people understanding what most people are saying any day of the week anyway. But then to be able to understand these people, and especially the children that have brain injuries or various traumas that are causing problems, like, they're now speaking in full sentences. That's amazing. And they weren't getting that when they were in speech pathology for years. So again, it's hooking into a part of the brain that I think is sorely forgotten in a lot of scientific study. And it allows us to know that there's options out there for people if they're not seeing results with conventional means.
That's really cool to hear the backstory, because one of my very first questions was how did you come about, to create this documentary, and the fact that you had already started it and then your wife working at Sound Away. It's a beautiful how that weaves together. And I really liked that in the documentary, even though you mentioned just a minute ago that it does have the esoteric singing bowls and yoga and music therapy and doctors, and I loved it. It covers all the things that I'm interested in. But I like the fact that you started with the guitarist playing Whiskey in the Jar, because that's not exactly what people would think of. And I wondered if that was intentional to say that,
Yeah.
it really is, because music is not the universal language. It is a language universal, but it's not the universal language. Denise and I've talked about this before, because different music speaks to different people. And so I love that you started that way, and that you really covered kind of the gamut and all the music therapists that you had. And my background is in music education, music therapy before performance. So I enjoyed that as well. And you just touched on, and I know Denise will find this interesting when she gets a chance to see it, the father who was playing Whiskey in a Jar, his son had an auditory processing disorder and wasn't
Mhm.
speaking until how old was he? And I'm curious if that was
Yeah.
somebody you personally, but that was a beautiful story, lots of stories. And I'll give you two questions in one. I want to hear more about that. And then if most of those people were Bellingham, I knew some of them were Bellingham residents, but you had a wide variety of people. And so talk about those connections and the connection to the man with the auditory processing disorder.
So Hugh was our second interview, and we knew him through a friend of ours. So Salo Stanley, who appears briefly in the doc, she was a sound practitioner in Fresno, California. She's now moved to Springfield, Illinois, and does, I can't tell you how many different healing modalities that lovely person works in, but she is just an amazing soul. So through her, we met Hugh, who is the musician that you speak of. And Hugh and I got along very swimmingly. Like, he was getting into acting, but also playing music, because music was therapy for him. And that's how sort of that element became part of what we were doing. And so then he told me the story of his son, and I said, whoa, hey, whoa. All right. So I had just started this documentary, like, out of just a need. I'll tell the story of how this all started, but I just started the documentary. So when I heard that, I was like, we have to talk. And I can't remember exactly what age his son is, because you have to remember this documentary has been filmed over the course of almost 10 years. So
Wow.
it's a lot of different gear, a lot of different setups, and a lot of
Very
me just
good.
Sherpaing stuff back and forth to different places. But so Hugh was in Los Angeles, so we interviewed him there. Jamie, who was the gong practitioner, she was also in Los Angeles, Eva Rock to be more specific. Salo was in Fresno at the time, now in Springfield. We have obviously Bellingham for the interdimensional sound chamber, and Linda and Diana. And then we also had Mr. Feelgood and the Firm Believers, who they're also out of Bellingham. And Major's a good friend of ours, and he's just a wonderful, sweet human being. And then the Music Therapy Trust was out of Toronto, Canada. So while I was there for work on Ice Road Truckers, I was able to go and film with these people. And the work that the Canadian Music Therapy Trust is doing is phenomenal. They really do have a set standard that is, I think, a gold standard for anybody doing music therapy nationally. And I think they really do see the benefit to where there's a lot of government assistance to get people into programs with them, which I wish we had more of here in the States, to be honest.
I made a note about that. I want to look that up. And Denise, part of it is just trying to get high quality entertainers and performers, musicians in facilities so that other people can be exposed to music that wouldn't have a chance to get out and see music. I'm saying it
Yeah.
in my nutshell understanding. If that's, you can certainly add to that.
No, I would agree with that.
Okay.
I would agree. It's also, it's incredibly hard to make a living as a music therapist anywhere. So I think in terms of jobs here, it would be on the same level as like a social worker, essentially, in terms of like the pay and sort of the cases you would get. But at the same time, like the impact and the changes you can make on somebody's life, especially a child. So, we had, oh my goodness, Sabrina from the Music Therapy Trust. Sabrina had a swelling in the brain that caused her to have some very severe brain damage, which is why she was unable to speak until doing music therapy. And she also, like Matthew, who is Hugh's son, had undergone speech pathology for years and no luck. So the fact that they were able to turn it around, and Sabrina, with the severe brain damage, is now able to put sentences together and speak to some degree, then means that speech pathology is able to help her progress a little bit, but staying with the music therapy really did more for her than anything else. And so that was, I was very blessed that our friends in Toronto had actually lined that story up for us to get, and that Veronica, the mother, was willing to talk about it, because I can't imagine, I don't have kids, but I can't imagine how hard it is to see your daughter and know that she will never have a quote unquote normal life, but to see the quality of life improve over the course of a couple of years with sound therapy or more. That had to have been pretty amazing for her. And again, was the reason why she was willing to come on camera and share with us, which was great. And I'm very thankful. Everybody who gave their time for the documentary, I'm very blessed and thankful, because we had a lot of wonderful people join in and do this for free out of the goodness of their own hearts, and really help promote what, as a community, everybody's trying to do to just help other people. And I think that's the key. Like, being in service is it's always been one of my attributes that I've always put forth. It's like, let me be of service. So I do as much as I can for others when I can. Obviously there's self-care that has to happen so you don't become codependent and all that, but I always thought that was important. And a lot of these folks who were in the documentary do that, and they live that, and they walk that. And I think we need more of those kind of people in this world.
Amen. Pass the plate. That's excellent. So now that our listeners hopefully are intrigued and they want to watch, I watched it the first time on Amazon, and maybe that was in Canada before I even got home, before I talked to you, because I wanted to check it out after meeting your lovely wife. And I just rented it, but today I bought it. I should have bought it up front.
Oh,
So
thank
I could see
you.
it
That's
again.
very
Yeah.
sweet. We
And-
tried to put it up for free on Amazon Prime, but they changed the rules with documentaries where they wouldn't allow them for free with Prime subscription. So, it's not us charging, because I know I will never make back the money that I put into
Oh
making it.
my
But
goodness.
you don't do documentaries because you want to get paid. You do documentaries because they mean something to you.
Right. And it was only like $2.99, I think, the first time to rent, and then
Yeah.
maybe 7 or something to buy. But well worth it. I enjoyed it, and I think it's beautiful. And I hope that our listeners will tune in and watch and be inspired by it. And it kind of
Thank you.
reminded me. Go ahead,
I was just
Denise.
going to say,
Oh,
say the name of the documentary again in case.
Okay, it's Sound Heals the movie. And is that where I was going with this? Because now we know they want to see it. Is Amazon the only place? I know it's listed in IMDb. Is that the only place they can watch it?
so no, Sound Heals is also on Tubi, Tubi, which I believe is a free site if you want to go and watch it there. So
Okay.
please, I don't care about the money. I just want people to watch this because I think it's so important to see how sound can help every one of us, every single person watching this, listening to this, can get benefit from sound healing of some form. So yeah, Tubi, the app and website should have it on there as well. Last I checked, and Amazon also has it, and it's just called Sound Heals, and you can look it up. And the cover art is usually a couple tuning forks, so pretty
Yeah.
easy to find.
So, Tom, are you a musician?
Not even close.
You have a
No,
great
I
resonant speaking voice.
well, thank you. That's very sweet of you. No, I've spent all of my career in television and film, and then before that, I was a fine artist and went to school for fine arts, and never was musically inclined. I've always loved music and appreciated music, and have felt the power that music can have. But that's it was never my gift. So I figured, well, I'll try something else. So it seems like making films is something I'm fairly adept at. So I'll keep doing that.
Well, I thought it was cool. And it said executive producers, and it listed both you and Jennifer. And I
Mhm.
asked her if she'd like to be in. Oh, no, no, he's the talker. He's can talk about anything. So I wondered what hats, what roles you both played. Is she heavily involved in film stuff too? Was a little.
So not at all. She's not a film person, but um, she really did help me find all of the people that we needed to get in there, with the exception of like the Canadian Music Therapy Trust. And that was just because I was going up there. But everyone else, like, she had already been in communication with or knew of, and was able to get me in touch. So that was a big part of what she did. Plus, the reason I call her executive producer is I spent a lot of our own money to do this. And when you're married, it's 50-50. So I figured, at least I could do is show some credit where credit's due. She let me do my crazy endeavor of wanting to make a film, and didn't divorce me. So I'll take that as a win.
Bravo, bravo. Well said, well said. And it does look it's well done. It's not, I don't know how to say it, it's not cheap, just thrown together. So
Oh,
I can
thank you.
see it was an investment. And so that's beautiful that you honor her in that way. And she's very lovely, even though I didn't spend much time. I can tell she is a beautiful spirit. And
Yeah.
so
And a
what a
very talented tuning fork sound therapist as well. And just
yeah.
a good person with good energy, who again wants to help others. So that was one of the things that brought us together.
Yeah, Denise, you would enjoy the shop, all the different tuning forks that they have, and
I would like that. Yeah.
yeah, and just a lot to see. And I fell in love with Bellingham, even though it wasn't a chosen destination, waiting to get my COVID. So I'll probably have to go back again. But
Sounds like a road trip.
yeah, yeah. And this may be getting into next week's topic. As I mentioned, Linda's going to be on, and Dinah's husband. Do you know where the other interdimensional sound chambers are? Because I enjoyed it so much, I'd love to repeat it again. And I can't just really get to Bellingham that quickly from Arkansas at the moment. So do you know where any of the others are? Is that for next week?
Well, Linda can certainly speak to it more, but from my knowledge, when we talked to Diana before she passed away, she passed away shortly after we finished the film, unfortunately.
Oh.
But one of the things that we had talked about in the interview that didn't make the cut was that there were 9 of them total. I believe 9 of them total that were made,
Yes.
and of the 9 that were built, only 3 are being used for practice. The rest are owned by private people. And of the 3 being used for healing therapies, I only know of one of them that's still in use, and that's the one at Wise. The other 2, Tom, who had created them, he passed away, so I'm not sure if they're still doing anything with his stuff, but he was based out of Sedona. So there may be a store in Sedona, but I haven't tried to track it down. And then the other place that had one had shut down. So I don't know of anyone else doing this at this point, and I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong.
I was at a sound bath just last week, and I mentioned to the guy who's a sound engineer and other conversations and everything about the interdimensional sound chamber, and he said yes, he knew of it because he's created something not as elaborate as that, but something because he uses binaural beats with his singing bowls and stuff, which was really kind of cool. But he
Nice.
knew of it, so people in that area know about it. It's really
Yeah,
quite
it's
expensive.
really interesting what Tom had done, creating the steel structures, putting the speakers inside of certain aspects of it, and the way the tetrahedron is shaped. It's not what I would consider traditional. It has such an interesting flow to it, and you know that it was just intuitively created. It wasn't intellectually created. But that's what I think the magic is about it, is you get into something that the intention was all intuitively guided, and you can try to pick it apart and add science to it. But the fact is, like, it works. It does some interesting things. I've not had meditation experiences quite like I had in the chamber. And so, even with using binaural beats and speakers and my headphones, it just has a very different immersive effect, almost like a sensory deprivation chamber, but for me, without the anxiety that comes with that, more of like a peaceful, very grounded, and well-meaning sort of event. And I think Linda's also a big part of that, because she's an amazing person, and she's just so grounding, and she has this uncanny way of being able to hold space for people without saying a word. And so, I think part of it is just her.
Beautiful. So, what are the other documentaries that you've created? Are any of them also in the spectrum of music, or what are the other topics?
No, totally different. So the big one that I'm still trying to wrap out is called Freedom of the Pack, and that's about wolf conservation. So we started going to a wolf education center in California, and really, I've always been a fan of wolves. We didn't have them in New Hampshire growing up, but they used to live there. So at a certain point, I was like, well, it's kind of sad that these animals are just being sort of annihilated in states where they are trying to get back to a normal population number, and the government's letting them do it. And that really sparked me into pursuing the documentary on that end, and going forward with it. And unfortunately, a lot of what you would think are pro wildlife sort of nonprofits have their hands in a lot of pots that are not pro wildlife. And I think a lot of times when some organizations like to play both sides in order to get stuff passed, or to fulfill certain agendas, something's really lost. And unfortunately, like we haven't been able to get any of them to back us. So it's just, again, just like the sound doc, just me, and just trying to do what I can to meet with people and get this thing shot. We've spoken with people, across the country that do wolf work, and it's been pretty amazing. But it's a tough uphill battle, because in between the day job and life, you're trying to do this thing, and then now with the COVID situation, it really shut a lot of doors. And and then you have the people who are against wolves, who just will not talk to you because they don't want to be seen as bad guys, when in fact it's like, well, if you justify enough what you're doing, then maybe somebody won't see you as a bad guy. I mean, I will. I'm not going to lie. It's just I don't believe in killing animals for no reason. But
Right.
I'm happy in my work. I always let people speak for themselves, whether I agree with it or not. I think it's more journalistic in nature. That's why I enjoy doing it. But I always have my own opinions and thoughts. I'm from New England, so we all are very opinionated there.
Well, thank you for staying the course on Sound Heals, and I think it's beautiful that you were able to give it as a tribute to Diana, and that she
Yeah.
was able to finish that. And did she see it, or I know she's in it, but did she pass before it was released?
Honestly, I sent a segment to her before she passed. I don't think she ever watched it, so I don't believe she ever did get to see it. But that's okay, because knowing her, she would have just complained about how she looked, and she would have been
That's a
thrust
woman
through.
for you.
But she's also a Leo too, so she was a big personality. Like Diana filled up a room just walking in. Her energy was just so big. But I mean, you can't find a more, like, I don't know, a kinder spirit. You couldn't find somebody that had more generosity in them. So, she really wanted to make sure people understood like the benefits of sound, and that's why she agreed to do it. And I feel super honored that we got to know her and become friends with her before she passed, because she's just one of those people you'll never forget in life.
And that's the spouse that we're going to interview next week, Denise, of Diane,
Okay.
who it still technically owns, I guess, the.
Yeah, Bob's the store owner and he owns the chamber now, and
Okay.
still allows for Linda to facilitate. And then now we have a dear friend of ours, Elena, who's also facilitating, and she follows a more shamanistic path than Linda, but still just a wonderful, absolutely amazing human being who I'm blessed to know and call a friend.
And she's going to be on there too. She was the first one that Jennifer tried to get me hooked up. So next week we'll have both Bob and the two other ladies that lead. So it'll be interesting to know. Well, Denise, did you think of anything else you'd like to add before we?
No. I mean, I think I have questions, but I think I'll ask them to the practitioners. Because I would love to know like what frequency, what each frequency or what different frequencies do. Like which one is for healing pancreatic cancer, and then maybe they're not even that specific, but I have heard of things like that. So I'm super curious. Yeah.
And that's where it gets tricky, because some people truly believe that, but then there's not enough anecdotal evidence or studied evidence to point to that. So some practitioners will shy away from that completely, and others will jump right in. So it's I think with Linda, you'll probably get much more of an answer from her in terms of frequency use, because she is very thorough, and she has the things she's been doing for years that work really well for her clients. So I think she's got a set pattern. She's also very comfortable with saying what is truth to her. So she is definitely the person to ask for that. If you ask someone like Jamie, it would be a very different story, where it's much more like, well, we let people kind of feel what they feel and experience what they experience. And
sure. I mean, we are the placebo, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's something happening for sure, but is it one of the other docs I was doing a short doc with a gentleman who had stage 4 cancer. He went completely natural with his healing. He didn't, no chemo, no radiation, none of that. They were like, "Hey, you're dead, man." And he went home and he's like, "I'm going to watch my daughter get married and I'm going to walk her down that aisle." And he's, my age, he's like 30. Well, I'm 39 now. So he's probably about 38. And he just said, "F this," and went on an all raw diet and just cut out all the unhealthy toxins in life and changed it. And within a year, cancer-free completely.
Beautiful.
I believe
within
it.
1 year. And I think part of that is the food and the nutrition. And I think a big part of it is the will to live, the idea that our brain can affect the chemical balances in our body. It can affect and stimulate our immune system. It could do all these things. The mind is such a powerful tool that the ancients knew about. Like people like Aleister Crowley would spend years and years studying how his mindset and how his mental will would affect his body and affect those around him. You have all these mystics over the years that have said the same thing. The mind is a powerful tool. And I really think ultimately we can call it a placebo, but I think if we put our mind in the right place to do what it can do and to really unlock the potential and the power that it has, then it's almost limitless what we can accomplish.
That's a high note to end on.
Absolutely.
That's
great. So good to meet you, Tommy.
Pleasure to meet you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We'll be giving a shout out and hoping that lots of people will come and check out your beautiful documentary.
Yeah, we'll put it on our link in our newsletter and on the website and everything so people can find it.
Love it. Well, I hope you both get out to Bellingham. It would be nice to meet you in person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
road trip, road trip.
sounds like fun. Sounds like fun.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for
All right.
joining us.
Thanks, Tommy.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We are very grateful that you joined us today.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe, write a review, share it with a friend.